Okay, so it is the next day. It's the first day of the Winter League. We did say in this episode we were going to go over our youth match results. Ended up getting them all played. I paid a little bit of attention to one of them, but mostly I was just clicking find match and just letting them play out without being involved. And then, which you said we would do, and just analyze the stats a bit, and to try to see if there's anything we can learn from that, to maybe tweak something a bit, or not, as it seems, because the results came out really good here. So, but we'll go through them anyway. It was this one in particular, this red nose one, the second one that we played a bit of attention to. It was pretty obvious that the fullbacks were watching that was a real issue, just because one of them is horrible and the other one isn't a fullback. It's somebody playing out of position. So what we did is we ended up buying those two youth fullbacks we were thinking of buying from the scouting pool yesterday. This guy and this guy. Now, we didn't buy them yesterday because we didn't think that they would fit into our long-term plans and so on, but we ended up buying them. I mean, together they were like £800,000, which is actually quite a bit for us, for players that we don't need. So I'm still not sure whether it was the right decision or not, but it's done now. Pretty much. So, I mean, we have. I think I was sort of thinking that maybe they could be backup fullbacks for the first team, but then was also thinking whether or not we'd even play fullbacks for the first team for the tactics. So it was a bit of back and forth, a bit of indecisiveness. It was quite a bit to spend. The wages aren't much. Yeah, I mean, if we end up changing our mind and selling them, we'll lose a bit, but it's not a particularly expensive mistake. So yeah, I'm not going to dwell too much on that. But it is probably the reason what led to. I think if it wasn't for that, we definitely wouldn't have won all of those matches. But we'll see. So this was the tactic we went with. Basically, it was because this. One, we had a left back playing. It was somebody playing out of position, and this central defender is horrible. 27 tackling, and they can mark okay or whatever, but yeah, they're just horrible, and decent horrible or whatever. So we were thinking we'd put this guy in the defensive midfielder role, so he'd hang it back a bit, help these guys out basically, and these guys wouldn't get help, but these ones were the sort of the stronger of the two defenders. And then also have this as a winger hanging back a bit to. Same idea, helping these guys a little bit out on this side, and then this guy not to not help them out, and just generally have it as balanced. There's 4 players here. This guy coming back to help. This guy coming back a bit to help. This guy coming back a bit to help. So basically, our we sort of got like 4 defenders, plus we have 3 players that will contribute. Well, 2 that will contribute defensively, and this guy will significantly contribute. So you kind of think of this as like sort of counting how many players. I would sort of weight these at something like like full weighting, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and then this guy. It's very simplifying this conceptually a lot, but it's sometimes just worth doing these counts so you get an idea about things. So you've got sort of 4 players plus you could count this one as like a 0.75 maybe, and this guy, or even a 0.8. This guy you could count as like a 0.4 or 0.5, and this guy maybe as like a 0.25, something like that. So let's say it's like a 0.25, a 0.75, and a 0.5. So we're sort of saying 1, 2, 3, 4, 4.5, 5 and a quarter, and 5.5. So we're sort of saying we've got 5.5 sort of units of contribution to our defensive setup, and then attacking wise, you're sort of saying it's like 1, 2, 3, and and this way would be like 0.75, so like 3.75 plus like zero point 0.5 plus 0.25 sort of thing. So it's actually, I think that ends up so 1, 2, 3, 3.75, 4, 4.5. So we sort of got like 4.5 attacking units, 5.5, and then you can do the same thing with like transitional players, like how many players are helping you move the ball up through. So for example, these this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, and this guy would have some kind of, these ones would have all have some kind of weighting with different roles. These might be able to help a bit if they're wingbacks and stuff. So you can sort of work out, and obviously it all depends on your tactics and stuff. If you're depending on the type of passing, and various other tactical instructions will definitely sort of change how many players and how they're involved in the transitions. But it's important that you have players to sort of help with that. These are concepts we'll talk about a bit, but at various moments I think we'll do a designated video talking about these kind of more advanced tactical concepts. But for now, on this one, we are reviewing our youth results. I just thought I'd go through the tactics so we know what we're sort of looking for a little bit in the stats. I think one thing that was as a generally interesting thing across the 8 matches. So my internet connection is really bad, by the way, and I'm very far from the server, so it's I get I get issues sometimes. So yeah, so the striker, he ended up, that friendly that we did play and record, he did get 2 goals in that one, but then also he got 8 and 8 in the in our youth matches, which I found really interesting because he's very, like, the finishing composure is good, at least for the level that we're at, but he's horrible sort of otherwise, really, like, well, he's got good movement, so he's like, between the finishing, the composure, and the movement, like, they're like the main attributes you want to see for a poacher. But he's also really slow, weak, can't dribble, like, can't pass, has no vision, like. So yeah, he's also got good control, which is sort of interesting. So he's got some strength, but, like, yeah, he's bad. And it was pretty interesting that even a striker this slow, this limited, basically, that we could still get a goal a game out of him, pretty much. So that was interesting. It's certainly something that shouldn't be too difficult to get an improvement on at some point. But for now, we are just going to go through these results. So this first one, we outplayed them, it seems. I mean, like we were saying before, like, this is really just, this does not mean as much as you think it does. But obviously, I mean, typically, depending, it doesn't mean everything or something like that. It doesn't mean as much as what you might think it does. Quite often, when we're going through the matches, we try to talk about what does perhaps matter more. But at the end of the day, the obvious thing that matters is the score. But we didn't get to see the match, so we can't use the most important thing, which is having watched the actual match and having seen what actually happened. So this is all we've got to work with. So from that lens, like, it looks like we had the run of the play. We did have more shots, sort of more on target, more clear-cut chances, and all of their shots were long shots. So you could sort of infer that the defensive setup was pretty decent against this team, at least. So at a high level, sort of worked okay. But the thing is, some teams will be better, some will be worse. I mean, I think looking at it, like, formations-wise, it was mirrored. Like, they were, both teams were playing the same formation. So, and we're not sure, we just pretty much had all the tactical instructions in the middle. We're not sure what they had, and we didn't see the match. So, but I think mostly what we're going to learn that might help us improve anything is, to be honest, is going to be through our individual player stats. So, I can't even remember my team's name, to be honest. Okay, so sorry, whether I was the home or away team. So, the away team. So the left back. 13. This is when we were still playing the DMC or something, a left back. So he's playing out of position. So yeah, had quite a few pass attempts, 1 header, 13 dribbles, 5 tackle attempts, 4 interceptions. So heavily involved, the fullback, which isn't surprising because they're playing wingers. The centre half that we wanted to have sort of less involvement did have less pass attempts, had a couple of header attempts, 3 dribbles, ended up with 4 tackle attempts as well, 4 interceptions. The one that we wanted more involved did have more passes, didn't have any header attempts, had a few more dribble attempts. They actually had less tackle attempts but more interceptions. So it seems, and then our right back, 3 interceptions and the 4 tackle attempts. So actually, it seems like the defensive load was pretty evenly spread across, to be honest. I think the interesting thing in particular is that it was the left side that had all the header attempts. We'll just try and keep tabs on that. As to why that might be, I think it's because we're sort of forcing the play. I mean, its thing is there's one match in a little bit, but I'm just theorizing a little bit that because the MRC is central midfielder and the MLC was defensive midfielder, that the play might be we giving a little bit more space to their winger that's on the their left winger that's against our right side of defenders, and then when their crosses are coming in, they're coming in towards the left side of defenders. But that's probably just one factor. So our defensive rolled midfielder, he's less involved in the passing than the central midfielder. Way less dribble attempts, which is fine. That's what you want to see. More tackle attempts, which is what you want to see. 1 interception. So the central midfielder, most passing attempts out of everybody. A couple of headers attempts. Bit of dribbling action going on, dribble touches, and a couple of tackle attempts, 5 interceptions, and had a shot. So he was the most heavily involved, which isn't surprising. His the tactic in this tactic in particular places really isolates this. Like, this player is quite isolated as like we're very weak in the center basically, and all of the attacking players, like, this will be the only option that they have. This tactic isolates players a lot. Quite a bit. Not a, I mean, the variant where the AMC is the DMC instead does isolate your attacking players a lot and forces them to do a lot of things one-on-one. This one, it will have a little bit more options for players. They will lay it back a bit. There will be more possible to pass the play. So I think that's perhaps why he's got the 13 pass attempts. But it's we'll see if there's a trend there. Obviously, passing will be important for that position. AML, I think in particular, he's really slow. He got involved in the tackling. He got tackled quite a bit, a few dribbling touches. But yeah, this doesn't... the AMC... a lot of incompleted passes. His passing is decent though, so it's hard. He might, because he's like sort of at the final stage, so he might be trying to doing sort of high risk, high reward passes that if they're pulled off, they might have helped a lot, like led to a goal scoring chance or something. And so no header attempts, 1 shot attempt, and the AMR, he was the one that's a bit faster. So he had some more dribbling touches. He did get a couple of opponents beaten on the dribble. Tackle attempt. He had 3 shot attempts. He actually had the most out of everybody. And then our striker, the least involved out of everybody, which is what we wanted, especially with the role we gave him, just the poacher role. Hardly touched the ball at all, dribbling. And had 2 shots and scored on both. So, at the moment, my main takeaway from this match, and we're just going to look for trends. We won't go through all of them at this sort of this level of detail, but I'd say we just we'll move on, and we'll keep everything in mind that we just said, and we'll look at the next one. So this one, it looks like they had a bit more of the run of the play than we did. And this is the one that I watched a bit of, so I can definitely confirm that. it felt like when I was just watching it that we were, if you want to call it that, we were lucky that we won, and I would say that. I mean, we weren't making any tactical changes or anything really, just watching it a bit. So it was kind of obvious that that a lot was being asked of our fullbacks watching this match, and it's not that surprising. They were playing. It was a mirrored formation yet again. So as soon as it's these AMLs and AMRs that we're up against, then typically that means that your fullbacks will have a lot of work to do. So yeah, looking at this again, the right fullback, 5 tackle attempts, the left one, only one, and he missed it. I think I saw that, and it, So in this game in particular, we was sort of this. I think this is much more the case that it seems that we did successfully push by having our MLC set to defensive midfielder role. It meant that it alleviated quite a bit of the pressure on the DL and the DLC, and put extra pressure on the DRC and DR. So this is more coming through in the stats in this one, as you can see. Like, they ended up getting a lot more of the ball and a lot more pass attempts than the other two. They ended up also between them attempting 13 tackles on one side as opposed to 4 on the other side. They also got 10 interceptions on that side as opposed to 5 on the other side. So a lot more of the defensive load ended up being pushed across where we wanted it to be. So that was good. The MRC hugely involved in the passing, 18 pass attempts, more dribble touches than anyone as well. So it seems in this tactic the actual central midfielder for us is like massively involved. Basically, like, there are loads of passes, they're on the ball a lot, and I think last game they had a few tackle attempts. This time only one, and the last game I think they had a shot attempt, and this time they didn't. But it seems like from this, you would be saying for this role in particular, like, you definitely need somebody who can high vision, high passing. They're receiving the ball a lot as well, so you want good control. And they're dribbling quite a bit, so we sort of want dribbling. They're involved. You need tackling. You want strength, and even then they seem like they have the odd shot. So you might even want long shots. So you want a lot from this midfielder. But I'd say in particular the thing that they are doing loads, like, is so far at least, which we'll keep tabs on, is they're just a lot of the ball, and to get this sort of dribbling. So we want it would be passing and vision and control. That's what we would be looking for, and then strength, dribbling, and strength a lot though, so they can hold the players off and not get tackled with the ball so easily. And that's the main things. And then I'll just be looking for these other things that we discussed. Like, you wouldn't get it all. That's it. So you just have to sort of juggle around a bit. I think the other thing they didn't get any header attempts this game. I think the other game we got one, so we'll just try and keep tabs on that. This MLC in particular is just really weak, so I think, but they are coming back to help defensively a bit, so we could just keep just look on how much they're contributing defensively as well. Last game I think they had 4 tackles, this time 1. They also got an interception. And they had a shot or whatever, so they're still a little bit involved in attacking. So for this, interesting for this one. Only the 4 pass attempts though. The AMC this time, they had a lot of passes as well. I think this is assists. They got assist. No shots or anything this time, but we'll see if that's a strong trend as well. Whether they involved a lot in the passing there. And our right winger, 4 run past opponents. So this one in particular, it just seems like the main thing we would want for them is just the ability to advance the ball up. So speed, strength, dribbling, and some attributes to make something happen once they beat the other team. Because we've got AMC and AC, like, probably care a lot about crossing, because they've got sort of multiple options to get it into. Whereas if you are not playing like multiple targets in the box, then quite often it can be more important when they cut in that they have things like high finishing and stuff that be able to potentially score themselves, because they're more likely to continue dribbling because they don't have any good options to pass it to, basically. But for us, we do have the AMC, so we probably would want higher crossing, and maybe we care about passing, and and finishing, and that would matter as well. But I think we would be paying a bit more attention to the crossing. And as far as the striker is concerned, it looks like, at least with how this team is set up, they are feeding the ball into him, and he is getting shots. 4 shot attempts, scores 2 goals, and yeah, otherwise, had a few touches or whatever, but not that involved. So I think it would be pretty easy for us. We'd just be looking for a striker that can just put the ball in the back of the net, basically, and then everything else is a bonus, pretty much. I think we would just be trying to find one that's another version of this one, so just higher finishing and composure, and higher everything else, which wouldn't be that hard, to just get one that can move a bit more, a bit stronger, maybe not better in the air or whatever, because it's decent. So, but just a player that's a bit more generally well-rounded, higher dribbling. We still won't ask him to do these things. We could still have him on the poacher role, but it wouldn't be hard to find a player that's just a general upgrade across the board, but still has good finishing and composure. I wonder how, and I'm curious about the control in particular, how much that's helping here. And he's also got high movement, which is going to help a lot with that role, but I'm curious about his ability to control everything first time and just immediately shoot. How much that helps. Without watching the match, it's hard to know. But I do. It does make me think, because he's so weak and slow and everything that once he gets the ball, he can't really do anything except just shoot. So I think the ability to sort of receive the ball and immediately shoot without having to take controlling touches and things like that. I wonder how big a deal that high control is to compensate for his lack of basically everything else except finishing. Right, then we get the 0-0 draw. So in this one, is it mirrored formations again? That's pretty interesting. I wonder if it's because this is the default sort of starting formation, and maybe these teams mostly have that. I'm not sure. We'll see if maybe it's just a coincidence. We'll see if the trend continues. So we look like we had the run of the play a bit, but it ended up 0-0. So looking for trends again, if our tactic is successfully just asking more of the right-sided defenders than the left ones. In this particular game, 1 extra header attempt on the right than the left. There was 3 tackle attempts on the right and 3 on the left, and 11 interceptions on the left and 12 on the right. So I would say it's not, it was quite balanced again. Yet again, our central midfield, the MRC with the central midfielder role, he had the most pass attempts, high, quite a few dribbling touches. He had the tackle attempt, a couple of interceptions. He did have a shot again. And then our AML that's being asked to track back a bit. He did have another couple tackle attempts and an interception again. I think the problem, you can see here he was tackled 6 times. I think the issue with this player in particular is he's just not a good player. Like he's not particularly fast. He's really weak. He can't really dribble, and he's just not a particularly good player. From the sort of attacking perspective, I think we'd just be looking for him to try to cross it a bit more. yeah, he's just not good for our tactic. I think we could try and get a bit more out of him with a different tactic, but not. Yeah, I think for us, we'd just be looking for a different player if we wanted to continue this. But I think I'm not. We'd just go through this. We're just looking at the stats just to sort of show you how you can analyze stats. I think as far as trying to improve this tactic, as generally speaking, we don't want to play this tactic because we want to play something without wingers. So we'll keep going. Again, the AMC had quite a lot of pass attempts. So this time he had a few header attempts. Other games he didn't have any. Not that many dribbling touches. And he had a shot. So, and the AMR, other games he's had the most dribbling touches. Yet again, that's true. Other games he's had the most run past opponents. Yet again, that's true. Had a couple of shot attempts. He's had shot attempts in other matches. So, and then our striker, more touches than he's had in any other game. But yeah, again, once he sort of gets it, he's immediately laying it off or shooting it, it seems, because he's very rarely, you can look at that, like dribble touches for striker, only 7, hardly any. That is, and every game is a very low number. 4 shot attempts this game, but he didn't score. Next game, we had the run of the play again. Did we check this one just now? Can't quite. Let's have a look. No, right. So, was our tactic successful in pushing it, like asking more of the right side? One extra header attempt, 6 tackle attempts versus 3, 7 interceptions versus 13. So I'd say yes, a little bit more down this side. I think mostly, though, the thing is we're looking at the header attempts, the tackles, and the interceptions. But because of how we're set up, we're not necessarily expecting there to be more header attempts, and we're not necessarily expecting there to be more interceptions. Depending on how the other team is playing, we would be expecting there to be more of those on the left side and less on the right. But the one thing that we definitely would be expecting to see more of on the right, depending on the other team, of course, is more tackle attempts. That's what we're mostly looking for here. So generally what we'd be looking for is, I would expect that the DLC, for example, would typically be needing to be the one that's trying to defend the crosses and stuff coming in. So he would get headers / interceptions as a result of that. So 24 pass attempts this time around, hugely involved, 44 dribbling touches, more than anybody. So like, it's really obvious that for us, the most important player for this tactic would be the M. Like, this is where we would want our superstar player to be. So if we could pick one, I mean, you know, based on how important they are to the tactic, and they would need to be able to do quite a lot of things. Yet again, all of their passing related stuff, getting the ball loads, getting a couple header attempts, more dribbling touches than anybody. No tackle attempts this game, but other games have had the odd tackle attempt, but did get 3 interceptions. And no shot attempts, but other games they have the odd shot attempt as well. The AML attempted a tackle, had a shot again. So they're doing a little bit. They actually scored the goal this game as well. The goal this game, which is interesting, and got man of the match despite. It's just pretty interesting. The AMC, second most pass attempts. That's quite common as well. They seem quite heavily involved in the build-up. They got the assist. That's not, and a couple in some 3 shot attempts, and the AMR, quite a few dribble touches, a couple RPOs, so most run past opponents again, and had a shot attempt. And then the striker, hardly any dribble touches, just over and over and over again. That's the case. Had 4 shot attempts this time, and scored the goal. So there's just reoccurring this game, looks like we dominated. And we're just going to look at the tackles. So 5 and 5. First time this guy didn't have the most. Our two fullbacks actually ended up with more. I'm just going to go back and see. Yeah, I think all these are. We might. I'm curious now I don't think this. Yeah, if the seniors was this way, but. Yeah. If it seems the youth teams are playing the same tactic, so yeah, that's just curious. I think we'll look to get that changed if that's the case. I wasn't aware, so I will look into that separately. So at least it's interesting for us anyway that for this exercise that it does provide a constant sort of point of analysis, I suppose. But right. So we nearly said the fullbacks. We were just saying they actually had the most pass attempts. They were heavily involved, but and they got the tackles. So it looks like the other team was going through the wings a lot, and our fullbacks were just winning that. So I'd say the reason why we dominated this match so much is because we bought those two fullbacks. If we had the two much weaker fullbacks, it probably would be a very different result. Yet again, he's just doing a bit of everything. Didn't do the tackles this time, but did have a shot. Our AML got an assist, 5 tackle attempts, actually the most out of everybody, and had a shot. And the AMC, not that many passes this time, but they scored. Couple headers. And a tackle attempt and a couple of shots. And the right winger, most dribble touches, but the AML got quite a few this time. 5 run past opponents and 2 shot attempts and dribble touches 11. That might be the most they ever had, and it's hardly any still really. A couple header attempts. The striker is constantly needing to challenge for the headers, so the aerial ability is I think his is decent, so that helps there. A few tackle attempts as well, and 3 shot attempts. So that was versus Gold United. I'm getting near the end now. Sort of 3 left. Much quicker for these ones. I'm just look at the key points now. So the defensive load looked quite distributed. Quite often it's not. That offset isn't making a huge difference. 1 or 2 games it did make a huge difference. Other games it it hasn't. But the thing is, if it's still in the end of the day just stats. So you'd have to watch the game to get the full picture here. The MRC, down on the pass attempts this match. That's just interesting. So it's the first match where they weren't really super heavily involved in everything. It looks like the involvement here, when you look, it's quite spread across the team evenly. This time our AML actually needed to do more. 50 dribble attempts, 5 tackle attempts. Again, like quite often they get a lot of tackle attempts. Actually, they are tracking back and helping a lot. That's interesting. 3 shot attempts this time for the AMC. AMR was probably their weakest showing, it seems, statistically at least. And then a striker 3 shots. So striker's constantly getting, despite being really slow, and not, but yeah, despite like he's good at finishing, but in regards to actually getting to the spots to shoot and things, he's got the really good movement. So it seems like despite having some real problems with his attributes, he still can just score because of his strengths, because of how the tactic is set up. And the last one here, we the away team. So in the last one, huge. You can see here they're 10 tackle attempts versus 2. And as I said, you would expect perhaps on the other side they'd have more header attempts. It was 1 versus 0, and you'd have more interceptions on the other side. So it's 8 versus 4. So I think when you aggregate these stats across all of the matches, I think you're looking at something like, it's 25% more, maybe. Because this, obviously not in this match, it's way more, right? It's 400% more or whatever. But I think when you aggregate it across, I think you look, there's about 25-30%, maybe something like that, more tackle attempts happening on the right side than the left side. And, a similar percentage extra header attempts on the left side versus the right side, and interceptions on the left side versus the right side. That's my gut feel here. So, it doesn't cause just because you've set the left-sided central midfielder to be defensive and the MRC isn't, it doesn't make everything go, it doesn't change everything, obviously, but it changes things by about 20%, 25%, whatever, something like that. So, which is a big factor. It means that, and in some matches, it's obviously, it means a lot here. Because it depends probably a little bit for the roles of how the other team's set up. So, again, significant amount of tackle attempts for the left midfielder here. Got an assist again, and a shot attempt again, and an interception. Most passing attempts again. So that was basically every match except for one, pretty much. Significant dribble touches, had a tackle attempt, 6 interceptions, huge involvement for him, that central midfielder again. Goal for the AMR this time. They had a shot attempt, interception, 3 tackle attempts, and they got an assist as well. No RPOs this time. And then the striker got the goal. 4 shot attempts this time. There's so many shots being created. So, and hardly any dribble touches again. They got the tackle attempt to get any header attempts. Yeah. So let's just put all this together, looking at our tactic. What we've learned here, just from the statistics. So the stats don't necessarily, looking at these stats isn't going to necessarily help us make modifications to the tactic. We need to watch the matches to do that in order to make the tactic better. But what it does do is it allows us, looking at the stats like this, it's quite difficult to sort of obviously count how many, all of every individual player is doing. If you want to, from the individual player stats can help a lot in regards to this tactic is asking certain things of certain players to attempt things a lot. Now we were looking at attempts. We weren't looking at successes. We didn't really care. We do care in regards to watching the match and if we win and whatnot, how many tackles, if this AML is attempting those 5 tackles and they're only winning 2, we obviously care, but from the perspective of working out what is being asked of different players, what matters is he is being asked to attempt 5 tackles in a game, which means that tackling is very important for the AML in this tactic. Now it's because it's his winger instead of attacking winger, so he is tracking back, and it seems like this guy is tracking back, this guy is tracking back, and I feel like if they're coming down this side here, the attack is coming through here, this guy is dropping back, and he is dropping back. So when they're coming in here, they're getting held up and passing it back and whatnot, and this guy is ending up, because they're being held up, he's ending up coming in and getting to attempt tackles. That's my guess as to what's happening. So we want higher tackling. That's one thing out of this guy. Or tackling is disproportionately important compared to what you think it would be for a winger, an AML winger role player in this tactic. And he also is assisting the odd shot. He's also attempting the odd shot. So, and he's running with the ball a lot. He was getting tackled a lot, losing the ball a lot. So I would say what we want is and you can also infer from all of this that he's coming back to defend a lot and he's moving forward to attack a lot. So, looking at the attributes here, what do we want out of this guy? Well, one, he's attempting a lot of tackles, so we want high tackling. Two, he's being asked to get up a lot and back a lot, so we want high work rate. Also, we want high speed, ideally, just so that he can get up and back faster as well. He's also being asked to run with the ball a lot to create stuff. So again, we want high speed for that as well, but we would also, he's losing the ball a lot getting tackled. We want high strength, we want high dribbling. He doesn't have either of those. And we want him to be able to produce something on the end of all of that. He won't be as advanced as on the other side. He's more likely to end up delivering the ball in some mechanism. I'd say we want high crossing. We have the striker in there who is being asked to attempt a lot of headers. I'm guessing it is being crossed in a lot, so we want high crossing. He has the odd shot attempt. Now, yes, ideally we would have higher finishing, maybe long shots. We'd have to watch the matches though to see where those shots are being attempted from. So to know that one, and we want high flair. So he has quite a bit of these things. For example, like and maybe we want high vision. Again, we'd have to look at the deliveries that he's ending up attempting. I'm guessing they're crosses, though. And we'd have to look at the shots that he ends up attempting. I don't have any idea what they might be. I'm guessing it's probably when he's got nobody to cross to and he ends up drifting into the box with the ball. So I'm guessing they're closer range shots. So probably the finishing and composure is more important than the long shots. Because he's not cutting in. He's not like an inverted roll where he's cutting in. So to recap, we want tackling. Really important, it seems. He's attempting a lot of tackles, so possibly the most important attribute, at least in regards to how easy it might be to pick up. It's not going to be a highly prioritized attribute that the transfer market would generally put on an AML. So we want high tackling, ideally some probably decent the finishing and composure. We want high dribbling, we want high crossing, high flair, because he's getting tackled a lot, so we ideally would have him getting fouled and stuff more often to win more set pieces. And we would want high endurance, I missed that before, and high speed, high strength, and high work rate. That's what we want out of this player, this position in our tactic. Our striker. Let's look at our striker next. Now, surprisingly, this guy is scoring the goals, getting the shot attempts, getting it all off. So I think and he's attempting a surprisingly high amount of tackles as well. So the tackling, ideally that wouldn't be really low because he's attempting them. Ideally he would win the odd one, but I'd say that's not the priority. At the end of the day, the main function of the striker in this tactic is to score goals. So we want high finishing and we want high composure. When we're watching the matches, if he's attempting a lot of longer shots, we want high long shots as well. But it's pretty clear on how many goals he's scoring that most of them are not long shots. Most of them are going to be because of this finishing and composure. I think we would continue to want the high control. Looking at the stats, he's also attempting a lot of headers, so we want high aerial ability, high movement. So he's already got a lot of the things we want high. And then aside from that, I would just say that we just want general improvements in other things. Basically, just somebody who's stronger, faster. Not necessarily high speed, by the way, but just more than 15 wouldn't be that hard. Strength more than 18 wouldn't be that hard. And perhaps a little bit higher endurance and natural fitness, just perhaps. But I'd say that's less important than these other ones. mean, you need to bear in mind that he's got the low endurance and natural fitness, but he's not finishing matches that tired, and that's probably a large contributing factor. That he's just so slow, so he just doesn't get that worn out from running. So if the speed was faster, he probably would need a bit more endurance and or natural fitness. So yeah, so the main thing really is this is the archetype of the striker that we want. You know, pretty much like high control, high finishing, high tackling, high composure, high movement, high aerial ability. That's the main things that we're asking of this guy. And then we're just basically just saying we want this type of guy, but just better, just less bad. And it shouldn't be that hard to find that type of player, to be honest. We don't need a lightning fast guy, just, 30 speed, 40 speed, whatever, just more than 15. Now, the AMR, so he's primarily just being tasked with beating players on the dribble and delivering the ball. So we just want high speed, high strength, high flair, high dribbling, high crossing. That's probably the main things we're looking for. He has the odd shot attempt, so ideally we'd have to watch the matches. But again, I'm just guessing it's when he's beaten everybody and he's cutting in and he's ends up having a shot inside the box. So high finishing, high composure. But he's not attempting that many shots, so I'd say that's less important than that other stuff. Right, so the MC with defensive midfielder role, they're getting quite a few pass attempts. So I'd say the passing and vision, or at least the passing, is important. You just want them to complete those basic passes. Ideally high vision. I'd say ideally this positioning would be way higher. They are getting ideally when they are attempting tackles, you would want them to win. So higher tackling. Didn't ever seeing him attempting any shots, so all of this long shots, finishing, composure, none of that really matters. They weren't dribbling it that much, although a little bit, so the dribbling mattered a bit. They were, I'd say the control matters, that you don't want them giving up the ball in that really bad place. They were attempting the odd header, so that matters more. So yeah, I'd say this guy's sort of okay, but I think the passing is just, we would want that higher, the tackling higher, and he's got high stuff, so we want the passing higher, the tackling higher, the positioning way higher, and the marking, we'd have to watch the matches to see how often he ends up marking players, but maybe that's important. But yeah, broadly, kind of okay. It's just a shame that the things that he, some of the stuff that he's the strongest in here, like the finishing and the long shots in particular, and the dribbling to a lesser degree, that matters way less than things like the passing, the positioning, and I'd say the tackling. So I'd rather those attributes were sort of swapped with those ones. And it shouldn't be that hard to find an MC. We just don't care. Unfortunately, it just doesn't matter at all. I don't even know if he ever attempted a shot from memory in any of those matches. So the finishing and the long shots just doesn't matter at all, basically. And they're his two highest attributes, pretty much. So now this player was attempting the odd shot, so the long shots matters. Was needing to attempt tackles now and again, so the tackling ideally would be way higher. Loads and loads of passing, so you just want the passing and the vision and the control. That's we just want those to all be way higher. He was having quite a few dribble touches, especially for right in the middle of the park, so ideally the strength would be a bit higher, just so he could hold off the ball a bit more. But he wasn't getting tackled that often, so I'd say not that important. And he, but maybe the dribbling is a bit more important, just so he's a little bit faster when he's doing that. He was attempting the odd headers and stuff, so the aerial ability is probably, ideally that would be more. But that's all. A lot of that is peripheral. What really mattered a lot for this player is that he was just attempting loads and loads and loads of passes. So you just really want like really, really high passing in vision and really high control. Like that's what you, or really, really high passing in vision and high control, something like that. That's what really seems to matter. It was just to have a conduit to make sure that when it comes through him, that the ball isn't being lost. Basically, it's being retained. Right, and then with the fullbacks, this flat back sort of four, the fullbacks they're attempting a lot of the right back in particular attempting a lot of tackles. We just want a player that can tackling. That's the most important. And when facing off against the AMLs, like you just don't want the AML to be way faster than him. So he doesn't have to be fast, but you don't want him to be slow. That's the thing. And then the DRC on this side as well, similar type of deal. Like just you want him to win tackles. That's his main job. So you want the high tackling, and again, ideally it's less important the speed than on this side. I'd say just high tackling. That's just the main thing we need out of him, and other generally good centre half attributes. Tackling and speed. Tackling. This guy. Tackling a little bit less important, but obviously when he's being asked to attempt them, you want him to win. Maybe the speed is a little bit more important so that he can get into position to recover and to get to where he needs to be when these two guys fail. But as we could see, he was still needing to attempt tackles in quite a few matches, and he also was attempting quite a few headers. So I'd say aerial ability. This guy, aerial ability, marking, speed. This guy, tackling. Obviously, you want both of these guys to be able to do all of those things, but you have you have different centre halves with different strengths and weaknesses. This guy, absolutely tackling, other stuff ideally as well. This guy, speed, marking, aerial ability, and ideally tackling as well. This guy, marking and tackling, because they're coming down this side a bit more. When the crosses are coming in, this guy may be needing to mark people in the box, basically. So. And again, ideally speed as well, or at least not way slower than the winger on that side. So they're the attributes that we're looking for. I think the other team was having quite a few long shots in some of the matches, at least. It's hard to say, to be honest. Need to watch the matches a lot to sort of work out their goalkeeper attributes. It's very hard to infer that from the stats, especially when we're just looking at our own team stats. So I'm not going to comment too much. I'd have to go back through all of the stats and look at the team stats and focus on sort of different things to work out, perhaps trying to infer from the stats what the goalkeeper, but to be honest, it's super hard. Kind of need to watch the matches to work out what we need from our goalkeeper. So yeah, I won't pass comment on that. So yeah, so there we go. We got just by looking at the stats from those matches, we've got a real clear idea about the types of players that we should be looking for this specific tactic, basically. So I hope that helps, and we'll finish this video up now. Cheers.